Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into some absolutely fascinating material from the Charisma Lab. You know that feeling when a really promising connection just fizzles out of nowhere, and you're left scratching your head, wondering what went wrong? Well, you're definitely going to want to stick around for this one. We're breaking down the totally counterintuitive reasons why our absolute best intentions, like the exact things we do to be super kind, agreeable, and thoughtful, are often the exact things that completely kill attraction.
Let's be real, we've all had these anxious internal monologues. Was that okay? Wait, did I say something wrong? And a lot of times we actually say these things out loud thinking, hey, I'm showing great self-awareness here. We genuinely think we're proving how much we care about the other person's comfort. But, as the source material points out, these exact phrases, they're usually the first quiet signals that attraction is literally draining out of the room. And that brings us to the core of what we call the attraction paradox. There's a pretty terrifying reality here, honestly. The behaviors that actually destroy romantic interest feel completely logical. They feel helpful, even generous in the moment. We're sitting there thinking our intent is pure, we're doing everything by the book, when in reality, we are quietly killing the attraction. We just keep doing these things, assuming they're helping, while they're actively dismantling the connection from the inside out.
So, let's look at Theme 1, the loss of friction.
This first theme tackles a huge mistake, making yourself way too available. The source explains this through a concept called the value of investment. Basically, human beings are psychologically wired to place a higher value on things that require just a little bit of effort to access. So, think about it. When you drop absolutely whatever you're doing to text back in half a second, or you clear your whole weekend the second someone reaches out, you remove all that effort. And because of that, their brain literally stops assigning value to you.
Now, you might think clearing your schedule makes you look super thoughtful and wonderfully available, but the harsh reality? It just makes you effortless. And being effortless means being taken for granted. Look, this isn't about playing silly games or, pretending to be swamped when you're not. It's about genuinely having a full life that doesn't just grind to a halt the minute a crush enters the picture. Having your own independent, full existence outside of that other person is inherently attractive.
Which leads right into the second big mistake. Agreeing with absolutely everything. I mean, it feels like the safest play in the book, right? You avoid conflict, you keep the peace, everybody's happy. But the cost is actually massive. By never pushing back, creating zero friction, you basically erase your own inner world. You end up turning yourself into a mere mirror of the other person, and you completely stop being a distinct, separate individual.
Because here is the ultimate consequence of all that agreeing. Nobody is attracted to their own reflection. That is such a punchy, powerful takeaway from the source material. When there's a complete and total lack of friction, the whole dynamic of two distinct people coming together gets destroyed. If you're just validating everything they say, you're not a partner, you're just an echo.
So what's the alternative here? Well, texture is interesting, and interesting is attractive. Having a real perspective that you can calmly stand behind, that's what gives you texture. The very moment you say something like, actually, I see that a bit differently, without turning it into a huge fight, you instantly become someone worth knowing. You gain that essential texture, which is literally a required ingredient for true attraction.
All right, moving on to Theme 2, the burden of pressure.
This theme focuses on the sheer exhaustion of constant validation seeking. Remember that quote we looked at earlier? Was that okay? When you constantly do this, you create a dynamic of emotional caretaking. Basically, you're asking the other person to manage your emotional state for you. And as the source material bluntly puts it, nobody is attracted to someone they feel responsible for keeping emotionally afloat. True attraction requires a quiet, solid internal security.
Another way we accidentally crank up the pressure is by bringing up the future way too soon. In your head, you're just excited. You're planning ahead, dreaming of future trips or how great you'd be together. But psychologically speaking, the other person experiences this as heavy pressure. It makes them feel trapped. You are essentially forcing their brain to fast forward before the present moment has even been fully enjoyed.
It really boils down to simple human instinct. People instinctively pull back from traps. When you suddenly ask someone's brain to make a premature decision about a relationship, it feels exactly like a trap. The source strongly advises us to just stay in the present moment. Let things build at their own natural pace. Talking about the future is really only attractive when both people arrive at that exact conversation naturally and together.
Now let's dive into Theme 3, the chameleon trap.
This is perhaps the most insidious mistake of the whole bunch, mainly because it happens so quietly.
It's the fade of the unfiltered self. It usually starts off when things are going really well. Because you don't want to mess up a good thing, you slowly begin to soften your edges. Next thing you know, you're hiding your strong opinions. And the tragic irony here? The original, slightly unpredictable person that they actually liked in the first place completely disappears.
You might think you're just managing yourself into a quote-unquote more acceptable version just to keep the relationship safe. But the actual outcome is the complete loss of your attraction foundation. Seriously, they were drawn to the unfiltered you from day one. The absolute second you start shape-shifting just to get their approval, that entire foundation just crumbles to the ground.
Which brings us to the root cause, fear. Underneath all these symptoms we've talked about, being too available, seeking validation, constantly editing yourself, there is a single root cause. For instance, if your core fear is being too much, you end up hiding your opinions and becoming totally invisible. If your fear is losing the connection, you rush the future and accidentally make them feel trapped. And if you're terrified of not being enough, you seek constant validation, forcing them into that exhausting emotional caretaking role. The painful irony is that your fear is manufacturing the exact outcome you are so desperately trying to avoid. So what's the solution? How do we fix this? The source material gives us a crystal clear antidote. Stop shrinking, stop managing, stop editing, just be unfiltered. The most attractive version of you is not the safe, perfectly agreeable, carefully curated version. Not at all. It's the version of you that has simply stopped being afraid to just be. So I want to leave you with a final, provocative question to really chew on. Are you managing yourself right now, or are you just being? Take a step back and think about your own interactions. Are you subtly shifting your personality just to be acceptable, or are you actually allowing your true, authentic texture to show? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope these insights from the Charisma Lab have empowered you to step out of that fear and right back into your unfiltered self. See you next time.